Hi there.
Okay.
I'm Paul Glumaz, and this is being brought to you by General Welfare Presents. And today is the 15th of April. And what I wanted to go over today is the incredible drive for war that is now being piggybacked onto the coronavirus. In other words, the entire crowd around Pompeo, the Senate, the Jackson School, the Jackson Society, which is based out of Britain, the entire British intelligence apparatus, including the former retired MI6 directors, they're pushing the line that China created the virus, and there's variations on this. It either was created by negligence out of the Wuhan lab in P4 lab in Wuhan, or they deliberately infected themselves so they could infect and bring down the United States because they are at war with the United States. That's the line. That they want to conquer the world and they want to turn us all into communist robots. You know, they're an imperial power coming up against us, the other imperial power, and it's us versus them. This is the whole mentality that you're dealing with in this right-wing kind of element. And the Koch brothers are examples of this. And it turns out that Steve Bannon, of all people, was key to vetting Pompeo into the CIA. And Pompeo represents this orientation of we're at war with China. And we're going to either win the war or we're going to lose the war. You know, that's the mindset you're dealing with. Now, that's the British operation. Now, the whole line began with the Daily Online back in January, where they started to bring this whole thing up about the Wuhan lab, about the, Chinese are lying, they didn't tell us in time, which is not true. None of that is true. The Chinese were very transparent from the very beginning with the Trump administration. Now, you have to understand that the research element in viruses and in medicine overlaps with the biowarfare element. And the US and China were in very extensive collaboration in working to figure out vaccines and various other ways to deal with the flu epidemics and viral epidemics, and also the concern that another SARS, which this is what it is, another SARS could emerge that would be a lot more problematic than the one before. So this is about the technology involved in biowarfare is also the technology involved in creating a defense against these diseases. And there's a lot of concern, just as there might be a tremendous amount of concern about an asteroid coming in and hitting the planet. So you need to develop the means to knock out the asteroid before it hits the planet. Well, this has a similar quality to it. Now, everything got screwed up because the FBI started harassing and started attacking these researchers in the U.S. So this created an environment of destabilize the whole environment. And this was the same crowd that was trying to impeach Trump. It's the same crowd. It's no different. The same British intelligence crowd that has been trying to get rid of Trump is the same one that is launching this whole China did it. And they massively penetrated the conservative layers and what have you. This is like diluting the zone. This is flooding the zone with this disinformation. Now, when asked about all of this, the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Milley, said that the intelligence capability of the military was looking into this. And what this individual said, what Milley said, the general who is the chief of staff, okay, he's the chief of staff. What he said is that the evidence tends to point towards a natural leap, a natural jump from an animal to human. However, the case is open and needs to be it needs to be more investigated. Now that's the military. That's the U.S. military. Like, they don't have an intelligence capability, right? These conservative senators, these cocksuckers, you know, that want to kill your grandmother, you know, they're supposed to have this great intelligence capability. Well, this is called disinformation. Disinformation is when you put together a plausible line about that fits into a pre-existing matrix, ideological matrix. So China's the enemy. Obviously, China did it. That's a pre-existing matrix in the minds of a lot of these conservatives, carried over from the Vietnam War, the Korean War, the battle against communism. You know, that whole thing is still there in the background. It's like a festering petri dish for all this stuff. It's just in the background, the psychological background, and then there's all this other stuff involved as well, you know. So they just flooded that zone, and now it's coming out everywhere that there's a bill in Congress that's going to allow for the suing of China for people that have coronavirus, you know, COVID-19. It's totally an incredible operation. And this is coming directly from the entire crowd that is supposed to be defending Trump, which is actually being manipulated by British intelligence openly. The Steve Bannon crowd, which is part of British intelligence. You know, the former heads of the MI6 are saying that it's China. Obviously, it's China. It's China. It's China. It's China. And a lot of the conservative layers are being disoriented because it fits their profile of the way they think. And that's how British intelligence works. They'll run every kind. Then there's the other disinformation operation, which is the following. The U.S. military dumped the virus into Wuhan during the games. During the military games, the games were military games where, you know, you had a sports games, and this came out of the United States, and this was this is the crowd that wants to depopulate the world with the virus, and so they dumped it in China, and they are blaming the Chinese and all of this. So that's where that's coming from. So you have a massive distrust of the institutions. You have a massive growing distrust between China and the United States. And all of this is being massively hyped up. So now you got all these people online talking about the U.S. Hybrid warfare against China and the Belt and Road, and this is against Russia, and this is all about the neocons. So the very people that are accusing China are being blamed for the thing in reverse. So this is incredible. I mean, this is like all over the place. This is massive. It's absolutely massive. And it's like you can't go online without getting hit with it. You can't go on your Facebook page and have your friends, you know, pumping this stuff in on you. And these are people that you thought were rational, you know, but they're not. They're just whatever their particular outlook is, it's being manipulated. Now, what's the issue here? Well, the issue is we're in a deep kimchi. The whole world is in deep kimchi on this. It's not just the virus, it's the collapse of the financial system. The bailouts are going forward, and God knows what that's going to do. That's going to make it much worse. So a new system is going to be required. There's no way you can get around this. And what you need is the collaboration of the United States and China as the first primary aspect of a new system. If you can't put together a new system, then the world will go into a dark age, which would suit the British oligarchy perfectly. That nothing would make them happier than to see the world plunge into the Middle Ages, to see 3, 4, 5/5 of the world's population wiped out in the chaos. But it also means that we're headed towards nuclear war, because if China's the enemy and they did this to us, they declared war on us. Therefore, we have to retaliate. And if China thinks the United States did it, then China has to retaliate. You see where I'm going? This could head to nuclear war. This is very serious. All right, so people are fiddling. They're being manipulated. They're playing the fiddle while the world is going to hell. They're not dealing with the reality that you have to collaborate to get a new architecture, a new paradigm, a new system. You need to get Glass-Steagall implemented as soon as possible in the U.S. and end this bailout. You need to get a new financial architecture. You're going to have to create a global healthcare Silk Road, a global healthcare system, because the third world is now being hit with the virus, and you have to deal with this. And it's not just like the United States. If they do any sequestering or lockdown, millions and millions and millions of people in all these countries, like in India, in South Africa, in Kenya, and other places, they live hand to mouth every day based upon their daily labor. And if they can't work, they can't eat. So the question is, are they going to die of the coronavirus, or are they going to die of starvation? Or if the starvation makes them very weak, will that accelerate the rate of which the coronavirus will infect the people and they will die? That's the kind of situation you're in all these countries, whether it's Mexico, South, whether it's all of Africa, whether it's India. How are you going to deal with all of this? This is serious. This is the country. The world is at a civilizational crisis. We are this close to going off the edge in a nuclear war with China at this point. That's how serious this is. and then you have what? Then you have the whole attack on Trump is escalating in the middle of this. Right when you need a unified response from a president and the nation, you're getting this massive assault on the president. I'll give you an example. At first, the claim was he was overreacting, and he was trying to set up a police state. He's overreacting to the virus. Now he didn't act in time. This is how the media is going from one thing to another, whatever they can do, attack, and that's where the Democrats in the Congress are doing. So you have the Republicans in the Senate trying to get a war with China going, and you have the Democrats in the Senate and the House trying to pin the whole thing on Trump, right? And in the middle of all this, there's an election. There's an election. Really, there really is an election. There is an election. We're 6 months away from, or 6.5 months away from, an actual presidential election. So guess what happened yesterday? Obama came out and endorsed for president his buddy, Joseph Biden. Sleepy, creepy, or creepy, sleepy Joe Biden. Wow. And then the day before, Bernie Sanders came out and endorsed his good friend, creepy, sleepy Joe Biden. Joe Biden is senile. Do you realize that? He's suffering from early stages of dementia. So the entire Democratic Party is now rallying around someone with dementia. And then the mass media the mainstream media, the leftist media, they're going to now rally around Joseph Biden. They're gonna try to massage the narrative that he's somehow the greatest thing since God knows what. And he is senile. He's entering senility, clearly, with dementia. And if they put somebody with dementia in the White House, that's it, folks. I don't see a way out. We're done. We're done. We're baked. You know. I mean, this is how bad it is. Okay, this is how bad it is, and you need out there to recognize that it's very bad, and that we need to mobilize people around what has to be done. And in this respect, the LaRouche movement, which I'm working with, will have a national conference on the 25th and 26th of April. And you can watch it on YouTube. You can register for the conference on the LaRouche PAC, PAC.com website. You can register for the conference. And we're going to be putting together at the same time a very special report on a healthcare program for the world that you can bring the United States, Russia, Canada, all the countries around. You can bring them all around this report. And this is on how do we deal with this, and how do we make the next leap in terms of science and technology with respect to these kind of situations, and also how do we expand the healthcare capabilities throughout the world so that we can deal with this thing so that it doesn't come back in the fall from the reservoirs of third world where the virus is going to be in the third world. So this is the way out, and you're going to have to deal with the financial system. And there's no way you can get around ultimately putting in Glass-Steagall. Right now, BlackRock, a investment firm that handles your money, is handling the Federal Reserve's money in terms of where it has to go to keep the system afloat. And while on the one hand, there's some potential in the fact that the Federal Reserve is now being directed by the Treasury, nonetheless, the whole BlackRock managing is not for that purpose. Primarily, it's for bailing out the system. But at some point, the system isn't going to make it, and that's it. We're going to have to go into an emergency reorganization at that point, or else there will be total chaos in this country. Now, the other problem is that we're going to be running out of food supply in the United States. And the reason for that is that in this crisis, farmers cannot get a lot of the food to market because a lot of the processing plants, especially with hogs and cattle, are shutting down because people are catching the COVID-19 in the plants. So a significant portion of our production of meat is now being infected. Also, farmers cannot get a price that they need for their food, and they're destroying hogs and pigs and cattle. They're all over the country. They're pouring milk out. They're not, because they can't transport it, and so we're about to experience a food shortage. Also, people are showing up en masse at food banks. The food banks can't get enough from the supermarkets to meet the demand, and we're looking at potential food shortages in the near future, and so forth. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is that Donald Trump has appointed a special committee of 35 people, which includes some real jerks like Paul Singer and others, and he's bringing them in, and he's forcing them to be co-responsible with him in terms of how to deal with this, with the crises that are now unfolding. And then the whole issue is of does Trump reopen or not reopen? If he reopens and it gets worse, then he's to blame. If he reopens, if he doesn't reopen, then the pressure on the economy is and the amount of unemployment. We now have 24 million new unemployed. How long is that going to last? The pressure from that and the pressure from the business community and the financial community says you got to open up. We're all going to go under. Either way, what are you going to do? So it appears that there's going to be a selective kind of reopening, semi-reopening here, reopening there. It's going to be piecemeal. But this is the kind of situation that we're in. You cannot deal with this kind of crisis within the old system. You cannot deal with this within the old system. And that's the whole point. So in the middle of all this, if China's our enemy, well, we can't work a deal. We can't work our way out of this. You have to work with China. Not only does China supply a lot of the goods that we're going to be need, and a lot of the medical supplies, but the two together is the core of being able to put anything together. If you can't put that together, then I don't see a way out of this situation. So the hysteria that's being unleashed in every direction against China, and then against the alleged U.S. causing the whole thing, and all of that is a prelude to nuclear war. That's the problem that you're facing, and people have to wake up to that. They have to get tough. They have to understand that they're being manipulated. They're being used by on a mass scale like never before. And so that is why I'm encouraging everybody to go to the conference the week after next, the weekend after next, and listen to it and be part of that conference. Be part of radiating and getting other people to come into the conference, because that's going to be very key in this situation. Now, this is a turning point for all of humanity. We're either going to get out of this with a new paradigm and a new system, or we're all going to go down. You're not going to want to live in the world that would come into being if we're not able to make it into a new system. And the people who run the old system, the neo-colonial system, which is an outgrowth of the old colonial system, which is an outgrowth of the slave trade, which is an outgrowth of the slave and opium trade, which is an outgrowth of the Venetian system from around 1000 AD, which is an outgrowth of the Roman Empire, which is an outgrowth of earlier empires. This system of oligarchy, this system which controls through making money sacred and money based on money, this system has to be dumped for a system that Hamilton began in the U.S. And that system is the system that Lyndon LaRouche represents. We're going to have to go to an agreement among nations for a fixed exchange system, and where every nation establishes their own national bank type system, or turn their central bank into a national bank, and start the massive economic development that we need to get out of this crisis. So I hope you share this with others. Again, my name is Paul Glumaz, and this is going to be the roughest time of your life. It's going to be the roughest time of my life. And there is a way out, and we're in the middle of determining that. Take care. Thank you.